Hey cycling community, CG here. At the end of today's ride, I did this clip, but I was so reamed that it was pretty much worthless. I got home, took a shower, ate, I even slept, and I'm feeling a lot better now. The original intent of today's ride was for me to ride with a few other guys, keep it endurance, do a little paceline work, because tomorrow's ride is this big climbing ride with this other group in which I wanted to test myself on those climbs. Now that ride's in jeopardy, and here's the story why.
This is pretty cool. This is more than I thought. I thought it was going to be like 2 or 3 people. All right, so a couple options here, because this is probably going to go faster than, and not race pace fast, but faster than a couple guys doing zone 1.
Let me just start off by saying that if I was younger, I probably wouldn't have had the problems I had on this ride. It was nice to see that there were 12 other people joining in on this ride, but that also introduced the possibility that this was going to go out of control relative to the format that was defined and posted for this ride. With the unanticipated increase in riders, in combination with the original format, we decided on keeping it single pace line and keeping it in the low 20s. While most of the riders were on my OTF racing team, there was diversity in strength. And then there were people who I met for the first time that were on this ride. One of my responsibilities as ride leader of this particular ride, especially with the new joint venture between our OTF racing team and the local recreational club on insurance for these rides, is to make sure that everyone is accounted for and that everyone is connected that wants to be connected. Of course, there will be other rides where because of the format, people will be dropped, but in those cases, there'll be regroup points. Today's workout was not one of those rides. 30 minutes into the ride, the speed has crept up to the mid-20s. We are approaching a turn and we are all together, so I elect not to say anything yet, but we're definitely out of format. My old guy factor is starting to come into play where I'm starting to feel the effects of the extra speed when it happens at this point. And there's also cases like the stop sign situation, where we take off from the stop sign and I'm riding wheels from somebody in the back and there's a gap that's created, so now I have to put a little more power than everyone else just to get up there. That has such an effect on me that the next time I encounter a stop sign, I make sure that I don't have a big gap to fill. Today's course is dead flat, or at least it was going to be dead flat. Because of all the extra riders and figuring we're going to go a little bit faster, I added 10 miles of rolls. Retrospect, I should not have added 10 miles of rolls. The guy in green in front of me is one of the new riders whom I have not met. Recreationally, he seems like a fairly strong rider, but I can also tell that he's starting to succumb to the speed. Now I'm just watching the gap starting to grow, so I'm wondering when to jump across. I have my teammate to the left of me, and there's maybe 3 or 4 other riders behind me. So at a certain point, I'm going to have to get up there and tell these guys to slow down. Well, my teammate William starts to take off, so that's a good opportunity for me to get on his wheel. Still, I'm doing a 400 and close to 500 watts just to stay there. As soon as William connects us, I keep the power on and jump toward the front, yelling at them to slow down and regroup because there's people being spit out the back. Now these 6 guys are pretty strong and they're in the zone, so that's the last thing that they want to hear. So it takes a few moments before it registers. While some of them acquiesced, some of them just didn't hear, so I had to do some more power to get back up there and do some more yelling. While this is not what these guys wanted to hear, format is format. There are riders that joined this ride because of that format. And I'm thinking that everybody joined this ride because of that format. What's going on with this old guy at the moment? Well, I'm trying to recover from jumping and yelling. We are now just leaving the flat section, and we have about 5 miles of rollers to the turnaround point. And as I mentioned before, this should have been my turnaround point. Since it's relatively close enough, the turnaround point is going to be our regroup point. The speed parameters are now off the table. As I alluded to earlier with the stop sign example, I like to keep the speed nice and even. That works out the best for me. Anytime I have to do a big sudden jump, that increases the suck factor for me. Therefore, I'm always wary of those potential situations, as I'm seeing now. Now, the guy to the left of me is new to this ride. I haven't met him before, but I can already tell he's a strong guy. He can let gaps open up and he can fill them immediately without really any effect on him, where it would just totally suck for me. I have a couple choices here. I can either tell him, don't let a gap open up, or I can go and fill it at my first opportunity. I like to fill the gap, since the first option, especially since he doesn't know me, would make me look like a bit of an ass. Here's another interesting situation. It's my turn to take a pull, and on this section, totally flat, but it ends with a bit of a downhill. So my intent is to keep the speed up, it's comfortable so everyone doesn't want to jump on me. And then when I get to the other end, I can just pull off and then get a little bit of downhill, a little bit of rest. Alas, the old guy let his speed dip from 24 to 22. The others said this schmo's going too slow, so they just took over the pole. Of course, it could be the barn door factor. We're getting real close to the turnaround, and there's a sprint point there. I see only 4 riders came by. I don't know what's going on behind me. I would imagine some people got spit off, but I'm thinking that's the some on my wheel. I should have looked back, but I didn't. I just went to fill the gap. This is a beautiful part of the course. It's tree-lined, shaded. There's a beautiful river on the right side. I never noticed any of it. This is a long run into the final sprint. My leg is hurting me, the leg I've been having problems with, particularly the glute. It's flopping, the left leg's flopping all over the place, it feels like, and so is my foot. So I'm still trying to hang on to his wheel, and I'm putting as much power as I can to stay in with him. I don't know what's going on behind me, and I don't care. I only have enough energy to stay on his wheel. Once he lets me go, I have no idea what I'm going to be able to do. If I got into a car and went home at the turnaround point, I would have maximized my gains relative to the strength of the riders I was with. That means I would have been tired but not debilitated. I would have been able to consider that tough ride the next day. But this was only the halfway point. We are now leaving the rollers and going back on the flats. You would think that this would be easy, but you see those black marks down there? Those are raised bumps. And for the next 3 miles, we're hitting just nothing but bumps, and that just sucks the life out of you. Well, it sucks the life out of me. It takes a lot of energy just to keep going forward because you're not only going forward, but you're going up. Doing a quick count, there are 10 riders including me in the group. We are missing 2 people. Isai turned back early for a family trip to Pismo, but where's Big Dan? As it turned out, on the way to the turnaround point, Big Dan was at the back of the pace line. He turned around and looked at a recreational rider that was just passed. He noticed that he all of a sudden crashed by flipping forward and hitting face first. Dan went back for him and saw that he was unconscious for about 10 seconds. After the rider regained consciousness, Big Dan was able to get information from him and call his wife. The cause of the crash was a plastic piece that he picked up on his front wheel, which caused his front wheel to lock, and he went over and hit face first. Come to think of it, we passed that location before he did. If it would have got one of our wheels, we would have had a much bigger crash. Thanks to Big Dan, this rider could have been in a much worse situation.
No, when you turn your head, there's no... I mean, it's sore, but...
Well, at the very least, don't challenge it now. Just go on into the doctor. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right on.
Now, back to another rider that's in trouble. Me. We are about 2 hours and 15 minutes into this ride, and I'm starting to give out. Other than thinking that I still have another hour to go, I'm thinking, okay, this is the old guy factor. I would also start to think about when I would do these as a regular workout. We would do these team exercises where we would do endurance paceline work in the upper teens, and then over the months we'd work it up to the mid-20s. And this would be for a 3-hour ride. But mostly, I'm thinking about the 1 hour it'll take me to get back to the car. While Strava has its advantages, it can't replace fast group rides. That being said, the next day I didn't do that big climbing ride because I was nowhere near ready for it. I went on Strava for about 50 minutes doing a few leg openers, and then I did one of the Crit City races. I think I had one of my best power averages for that race. Hope you enjoyed this. Remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.